I can tell you with the clients we've helped, they know that we're making money, right? They know that we're a business. They know that we're making money. They are still incredibly grateful for our help. And a lot of the things that we do.
What's up, everybody? Mason McDonald and Dan Haverkosh with another episode of the Big Picture Blueprint. And today's guest will teach you how to do something that it seems like everyone else failed at over the past few years, which is pretty cool to see someone in growth mode when everyone else is in go back to corporate mode. But before we get into that, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. We're busy right now. Just, got 4.5 months left this year trying to make the most of it while the market's slow and we can buy big deals at a discount. Yeah. Before we're getting into that, we have James Heller, who owns the Atlas portfolio. He's based out of Denver. And what we really enjoyed about James is he got into real estate during the pandemic and wholesaling real estate in an expensive, hot metro like Denver, and has continued to grow and build his business even while a lot of people are going out of business. A lot of established people are going out of business, and especially wholesaling. That's been, where did the wholesalers go? I don't know. Most of them are gone. And so that's what's cool about him, his story, and his business. He went from physicist to real estate investor, and we talked through all aspects of how he has done and is continuing to do that. So this is a good one that gets really tactical on KPIs, employee management, marketing, just about all aspects of a direct-to-seller business. So let's bring him in. James Heller, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, man.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And I didn't realize, or maybe I forgot, I didn't know you used to be a physicist. So you'll have to give us the backstory. How did you go from being a physicist to wholesaling real estate?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it feels like a different life. I wanted something like I was guaranteed to make like decent money. And so I always thought like physics, engineering was the way to go. I worked for a semiconductor firm for 7 years and did pretty well, traveled around the world a whole bunch, worked in clean rooms, did all that cool stuff. And when COVID hit, I just kind of felt like there was an opportunity, right? We all had a lot more downtime. We were all working from home. And I had a buddy that got into real estate. He has built a super successful business in Boise. And I just kind of saw him doing the same thing. He was working the same position as me. And I kind of took the COVID opportunity to start building the business on the side while working full time.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. So we'll have to ask you about the background later, because that's pretty cool working in the semiconductor industry. But this is a big part of why I wanted to interview you, because so many wholesalers and flippers have gone out of business in the last 2 to 4 years, whereas you've successfully built up your business and gone full time and done so in Colorado, where it's pretty competitive. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, did you take a course? Did your buddy mention you? How did you actually get started, start marketing to sellers, and get your first couple deals done?
Yeah, man. So I didn't take any courses. I didn't pay for anything. I do think that can be like a easy button for a lot of people, and like it helps with accountability. But I talked with my buddy a lot, who is probably like 2 years ahead of me in building his business. And he's telling me about wholesaling and buying rentals and doing all these things. And I knew it was real because he was doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I started literally just cold calling houses. I looked on Google Street View. I'd found beat up houses in Denver, and I would just look up their info, give them a call, make a big spreadsheet, and just call all of them. And it took me like 7 months, and I ended up talking to 5,000 people before I did my first deal.
I mean, that right there, I think what a lot of people hear is they get stuck in analysis paralysis, which is ironic that the physicist, didn't, and just went and took action and actually, got the ball going. Like, people ask, like, how do you get started? You pick a market, you find who owns whatever asset class you're looking for, and then you get in contact with them via some method of marketing, whether it's cold calling, texting, mail, email, whatever. So walk us through the first deal that you ever did. What was that after 5,000 dials later, or 5,000 conversations later? What was it? Where was it? We'll dive into it, and then we'll
Totally. And I also want to share, I mean, I had zero sales skills, right? Like none. I was not that social. I was not that good on the phone. Like it took me a good probably 10 minutes of like staring at my phone before I would make the first dial
Yeah.
because I was like so nervous that the person was going to pick up, right? Like that's worse than them not picking up. And so anyway, like I just got the reps in. I would just keep calling, got slowly like more comfortable with it. And then this deal was actually a fourplex in Longmont, and it was just super run down, same tenants for a long time, no repairs. The seller didn't want to deal with it. And I didn't exactly know like what a great price was. And so we ended up getting it under contract. I want to say for like 575 or something, or maybe even 475. Like it was cheap for a fourplex in Longmont. I didn't even realize what a good deal it was.
Yeah.
And so got it under contract. Didn't really know what I was doing. I ended up talking with a guy at New Western who kind of priced it out. And he was like, dude, I think we had it for 475. He's like, dude, we could sell this for 515. And I was like, 515, oh my God, like I'm gonna make $40,000 on this. And sure enough, he did. Like he sold it in like one day. And we ended up closing on it. I found out later that he actually sold it for like 560.
Yeah. Those New Western slimy guys.
I, and I just didn't know enough. And he's actually a good friend of mine now, and we still do a lot of business together. But I just didn't know.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I didn't know what a good deal we had. Interest rates were so low at that time; they were like 3%. Like whoever bought this still got like a home run deal. So I made like 40 grand. He made like 40 grand. And yeah, it was just like this incredible proof that I now had that like this was a real thing. And I was like, oh my God. And I just kept hitting the phones after that. And the frequency at which we would do deals increased substantially after that. Like getting to your first deal is by far the hardest part.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's everything. 0 to 1 is so much harder than 1 to 2. And that right there is like obviously no animosity towards, the wholesaler that, got the extra meat on the bones. Like it never would have happened without them. And I think just being able to get it done by whatever means necessary for the first one was so big for you. So coming from, a pretty highly regulated environment, working in semiconductors. I mean, my best friend from junior high through college, he was in the industry forever, and I know what goes into it and how meticulous you have to be in a lot of the operations that you're doing. What useful technical skills did you take from your career that you applied into this wild west of wholesaling, single family homes or small multifamily homes that have been really, really beneficial for you?
Yeah. So I started as like a technical, like hands-on guy. Like I was aligning laser systems, and eventually I moved up to a team leadership position. So I really developed like some leadership skills there, like supporting other people. I was doing one-on-ones. I was doing their performance reviews. So that type of thing really helped me as kind of a manager. And I was also doing hiring, which is like the biggest bottleneck for my business now is hiring new people. So I feel very lucky to have some experience doing that with the company's money instead of my money. Is it scarier now? But at one point, probably for 2 or 3 years, I was also a project manager. And so my whole life was very KPI focused, right? It was like, do we have these procedures done on time? Are we hitting our specs? Are we hitting this? And it was very like, you're hitting it or you're not. And because of that, our business has become super KPI focused. We track KPIs for literally every single thing you could possibly imagine. And that definitely came from working at this company for years.
That's good to hear, because a lot of times people, they're really reaching to find valuable insights they got out of their education or a lot of times their day job. So I know I want to get into your team, but I don't want to rush it too quickly there, because that's something I struggle with. I mean, managing people's hard, especially remotely. How did you get from that first deal? Was that 2020?
Yeah, it was like very end of 2020.
Okay, so how did you get from there to hiring your first person? What was the time frame? What sort of deal count were you at? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I want to say 3 deals before I ever hired somebody. Um, and they were all like pretty sizable deals. It was like 40,000, 45,000, and then maybe like 25,000 or something like that. And at that point, I was like, okay, how can I speed up the next deal? Right? What is the biggest bottleneck right now that's stopping me from doing another deal tomorrow? And I realized it was a lot of the administrative stuff, right? So like going on Google Street View, finding beat up houses, like it was taking me hours. Like I was literally clicking through and just like find a beat up house, write down the address in a spreadsheet, and then calling them. So the first hire I made was a virtual assistant. Um, and they did those 2 things. Basically, they would find beat up houses, and then I would skip trace the whole list myself, give it to them, and then they would use a dialer to start just calling people. And if the person said, oh yeah, I would consider an offer, at that point they would just hand them over to me and I would pick up the conversation from there.
I think it's really important to note that you were doing all that work yourself, that tedious, pain in the ass work of doing the virtual driving for dollars, pulling all the data, calling them yourselves. Because I think a lot of people never get started because they want to build a business that functions without them before they make any money. And so, you made 40 grand on that first deal. It's not, you said a number of the next couple deals were similar in size. And if you have a normal job making, 50 to 100K a year, what would you do for 40 grand? Think about that. So I think that that's important. And I also like that you started with a clerical hire, because Mason and I both made the mistake of hiring acquisition managers sooner than we would have in hindsight, getting rid of the most important part of the business. I mean, I know your VA was doing the calling just to get the lead, but then you were taking it from there. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. It was just on lead generation.
Okay.
And I do think one big mistake that people make is they hire out a job before they fully understand how to do that job themselves, right? Because it makes it almost impossible to train someone else if you don't understand all the intricacies, the details, how the dialer works, what are good results, what are not good results. And a lot of people, like you said, they want to skip the dirty work because it's painful, right? And so they jump to the next step, but they don't have enough knowledge to really be effective in hiring that person.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that that's well put. So you've been doing assignments at this point, right? Those are all assignments. When or how did the business progress from there to start to incorporate actual flips? And when did you start hiring more people?
Yeah, so we just started seeing so many deals. I mean, that's the best thing about wholesaling is you have first access to all the deals, right? And so you get to make the decision. Is this a flip that I want to take on? Is this a rental that I'd like to buy? And I would start to see kind of more straightforward projects, smaller houses, maybe a townhouse, something like that, where there wasn't a whole lot of risk. And I took on, maybe 3 to 5 a year, something like that, just kind of simple. Later in my career, I would take on bigger, like luxury flips if they had enough margin, right? Because my competence is not rehabbing. I can't do it as cheap as the guy who does 50 houses a year. I just can't. And so for me, it has to be kind of a no-brainer if we're going to buy and take on a project.
You keep dropping a lot of stuff that's refreshing to hear, because it's what I think, and what I think is just so awesome, because my ego is so large. But it's I think being able to recognize that, like, don't create a problem in your business whenever you're competing against someone that's better, like ridiculously better than you. If you're really good at assignments, like, don't think you're going to be really good at flipping. And while it is like an obvious vertical integration into your business, it does add a lot of complexities to something that's already working. So have you experienced a mess up having added, flips into your business where you're like, I don't know, I probably shouldn't have done that. That was a big waste of time and money.
I'm so glad you asked. Number one, wholesaling business and flipping business are two completely different businesses. They're not the same. One is sales and marketing, one is construction. Completely different. They have nothing to do with each other. People combine them because it's all real estate. They think it's the same, but it's not. The biggest mistake I ever made, number one, I lost money on my first flip. The bedrooms were way smaller than they looked in photos. And I did this whole flip from San Diego. The house wasn't selling. I had never seen the house, whatever. I finally visited. It was in Colorado Springs, actually, downtown. I walked in and I was like, if you put a queen bed in this bedroom, it's going to touch all four walls. Okay. Nobody's going to buy this house. Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It was 1,300 square feet, but 600 of that was in the basement. And so I just made a bad mistake by not having experience, not looking at the house. It was just silly. And so here I am doing $40,000 wholesale deals, and I lost 20 grand on this flip that took me 3 or 4 months.
Beautiful.
So that's the financial impact. How about the emotional impact, right? You're stressed out. It won't sell. You're losing sleep over this, all these different things that I think they don't show up on a spreadsheet. So people ignore the possible emotional impact from doing a bad deal.
Oh yeah. One, and the long-term financial impact of you start getting that crippling or paralyzing fear for other deals of like, oh shoot, like I have hundreds of thousands deployed into this deal or less than that. Or, you think of all the what ifs and everything, which makes it a lot harder to take action. Yep. But you said you're big into KPIs, and I want to get nitty gritty in just a little bit on the KPIs you keep in your business, but specifically to kind of determining what your exit is now in 2025, August of 2025. When do you determine what your disposition strategy is of, assignment or double close or whatever it is, flipping or keeping as a rental?
Yeah, for sure. We almost never double close. We typically do assignments. Most people who are big in the space are fine with whatever you're making as long as the numbers pencil for them. But I think your bigger questions about like flipping and renting. For a flip, for me, it has to be super straightforward and super secure. So if it's a small house, a townhouse, I also do like because your walls in. You're not as worried that some big mistake comes up. But to do a flip, I'd probably, a quick flip, I'd probably have to be making at least 50 grand. If I was doing a larger flip and it was almost guaranteed that we were going to make like 6 figures, I would consider taking on that flip. But that's running like very conservative comps, running extra big rehab budget, penciling in, replacing everything, and if we would still make 6 figures, then I would consider taking that on. As you guys know, rentals are almost impossible to buy in Colorado right now because home prices are so high. So if I do find a property where I can add enough value to it to refi out and still at least break even or have maybe a little bit of cash flow, then I would consider buying it as a rental, which I'm actually looking for right now. One of the troubling things in Colorado, you probably know this, is if you're looking for cash flow, you're probably buying in a neighborhood that is not great.
Either that or you have to get a crazy discount.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really challenging. Yeah, a lot of times you're looking at like Aurora, right? Because the rent to price ratio just makes more sense than it does in Golden, right? You're never going to make money in Golden, but much better neighborhood, right? You're going to have less headaches from tenants and all those things. I'm also pretty big on sub 2 deals. We do a lot of creative financing, a lot of sub 2 seller financing. Those completely rewrite the rule book, right? Because you can take over an older mortgage or you can create a new loan with the seller where all of a sudden the numbers make sense. So I like those quite a bit. I've bought sub 2s where I put very little money down. I have one that has an interest rate under 2%.
Whoa.
And so that can be a great way to build a rental portfolio as well.
Yeah. No, and that right there is like it seems like you've kind of created a formulaic approach to all these different dispo strategies, which is nice. So with the flips though, what I find interesting is like you're looking for a minimum profit number of, 50 grand or whatever it is, or, six figures on the larger one, rather than what your cash on cash return is or what your IRR is on that particular deal. So how do you structure it whenever you go in? Are you just, paying cash for it, or is it a hard money deal? Is it, traditional financing? How do you pay for these?
Yeah, so I did one just a couple weeks ago. It wasn't exactly a flip. We closed on it and then we sold it a week later, basically. That one I was able to just fund in cash. So if it's, a more reasonable deal, condo, townhouse, something like that, I could potentially fund it in cash. Otherwise I'll go with hard money. Like for a bigger project, I'll definitely do hard money. Um, Typically I'm getting 90 to 100% of the purchase price as a loan, and then I'm getting 100% of the rehab budget as well. So most lenders are looking at, how much loan are they giving you to the ARV of the property? Some are looking at loan to cost, but there are lenders out there that will give you 100% of your purchase and your rehab as long as you're buying it deep enough that it's, I think, usually less than like 70% of ARV.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's a hard money lender out of Denver I've used for years. And if it's a good enough deal, and especially if you have a relationship, they'll fund 100% just like that, like you're saying.
Yep.
So, all right, let's talk about the team today, KPIs and how those play into each other. Who do you have on your team? What are their roles? And I'll leave it at that. And then we'll get into their KPIs and how you track and hold them accountable.
Totally. I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of a full circle business. And to me, a full circle business is one that could run in a perfect world without you in it, right? So I think there's four components basically of a full circle business in wholesaling. First one is lead generation. Second one is sales. Third one is transaction coordination. And fourth one is dispo, right? So if you have those four components, you can basically run a whole deal without being involved. So on lead generation, we have cold callers and texters. These are virtual assistants that are in Bangladesh, Egypt, Pakistan, the Philippines. We have 2 full-time sales guys. These are the guys who are actually going to houses and closing deals face to face. We have a full-time transaction coordinator, and she's also an assistant, so she does kind of some different admin roles. And then on dispo, we have a sort of a hybrid dispo and operations manager. So he does all of our dispositions of all the properties that we bring in. And then he also does operations. What I found with my kind of full circle business model with those 4 components is there was still something missing. It's like the glue in between all those pieces, right? Who does the communication? Who makes sure things go smoothly? Who's keeping things rolling? I found that was me a lot of the time. And so we made a decision to hire an operations manager, and he has just been fantastic in like connecting all the dots basically. So even if I'm out of town or I'm unavailable or something like that, we're still getting deals under contract. We're still selling deals. He's kind of the glue between the whole team.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds like he's almost essentially a COO functionally. So talk to us about KPIs and how you're holding I think you said 8-person team accountable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we have basically, when I look at each role, I think, okay, what are the most important deliverables for this role, right? And then how do you quantify those things? So for lead generation, it might be total number of calls, total number of contacts, total number of leads generated in a day, right? And then you can start looking at those ratios. So out of 1,000 calls, how many contacts did we make? Was it less than 10%? Okay, there's a problem with our dialer if it's less than 10%. Out of that many contacts, how many leads did we get, right? If it's less than 10%, we might have to do some training with the team, right? Because for whatever reason, sellers just weren't vibing with the conversation. So that's like lead generation. On sales. To me, the most important one is appointments. How many appointments do you go on? Like I can draw a direct line between number of appointments gone on and how many deals you close. Like it's almost like a 1-to-1 ratio there. So we keep those super tight. And then as a team, obviously we track things like gross revenue. I track also net margin on our gross revenue. So that's super important. Not everyone talks about that. They have a big 7-figure business, but they're not making very much because they're spending too much on OpEx and whatever. That's a very important one as the owner of a business. We also track things like closing rate. We want to make sure that we don't fall out of too many deals. We track all kinds of things. One really interesting one that we tracked last quarter actually was how many 5-star reviews do we have? Because that's super important and nobody thinks about it. What's the first thing you do if you ever go shop for something? Like you look at the reviews, right? And so I think that's one place a lot of people have undersold themselves by not building a brand with positive reviews and positive brand presence. And so we decided to track that as a KPI.
That's a really good one. And it's a good point that we can kind of expand on a little bit, because I feel like a lot of people have the hesitation, a lot of wholesalers specifically, or people that call themselves investors that are wholesalers. They,
A lot of those.
yeah, right. Makes us feel better. But it's hard to want to be customer facing because sometimes you feel like you're just a middleman. In the wholesaling scenario, especially whenever you're taking on these like junky houses that need a tremendous amount of work, they don't know what to do. You're coming in, you're really helping them. How do you, how have you approached building this customer facing brand in a space that sometimes people, feel has kind of a bad reputation in the industry?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, are you providing value to people? Or are you skimming equity from people, right? I mean, you can look at things different ways, but I can tell you with the clients we've helped, they know that we're making money, right? They know that we're a business. They know that we're making money. They are still incredibly grateful for our help. And a lot of the things that we do, no agent would ever be willing to do, right? We actually had a client just 2 weeks ago. He had literally run out of money. He was an alcoholic, so he was really having health troubles, but he literally didn't have money to buy lunch. We drove over to his house every single day during escrow and bought him lunch. Just brought it to him. Hey, how are you doing? How are things going? And his goal was to sell the house so that he could get into sober living. Didn't have enough money to even check in. And so on the day that we closed, we made sure that he got paid right away. And we actually drove him to sober living to make sure that he was all set up there. This is just a service that an agent is not going to provide, right? There's a market for agents. 98% of people should sell with an agent to get the most money that they possibly can. But we provide a service to people that need to sell for a particular reason. And we try to be really, really good at that. So you always just need to ask yourself, am I providing value in this marketplace? And would my clients, my customers, be willing to say good things about our service, right? And if that's the case, then you have nothing to worry about, right? You should have a brand presence. You should have people saying good things about you publicly. But I do think a lot of wholesalers are operating in kind of a shady space. They're not proud of their accomplishments. They're not proud of the way that they do business. And so they shy away from building a public facing brand, just like you said, right? With reviews, because they're not proud of what they've built.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice right there. And if you don't feel that way, then you probably should look in the mirror and see what kind of business you're attempting to create, because it's not going to be sustainable if you're trying to operate in the shadows. And I think what you're saying there, there's obviously a need for it. Of like, you're not trying to skim, $500 assignment fee doing this daisy chain. You're going in, finding, potentially distressed sellers or people that have a problem that you're able to solve, and going in and actually solving it for them, which is huge. And it, creates values for the sellers, it creates value for you, all the people involved in the transaction, and then the end buyer who's going to potentially, flip the home and put something usable on the market, or, provide a rental, for a family that needs a rental. So that's awesome to hear. On the sales side of things, what's your turnover like of, when you brought your first person on to however many salespeople you have right now, how many people have kind of cycled through or churned through? What mistakes have you made for the people that have been fired, or are you still same original team?
We have zero churn on sales. We haven't turned over a single person. And to me, that's super important, because every time you turn someone over, you invest so much time into training somebody, so many resources, so much time. If they leave your team, I mean, they're taking so much with them. And so for me, the hiring process is so important, because that person can be on your team for 3 years, right? And so I'm more than okay to spend a couple of weeks or months to find the right person who is talented, is a hustler, but is also a good culture fit. Like, all of those things are equally important. And it is tough, because you're only having a few conversations with this person before you bring them onto your team, right? So the question is, how do you get to the truth as quickly as possible? That's the challenge. We have had turnover in other roles. I can tell you it's all been because of culture fit, not necessarily performance. But the culture of your team is so important, right? Do the people enjoy working together? Do you enjoy working with them? Do you have fun together? Does it light you up? One like really quick and easy litmus test that I use sometimes is, if somebody calls me and your phone is ringing and you see their name on voicemail or whatever, how do you feel? Are you excited to answer that call or not? And if you're not, you probably need to cut them out quickly, right? So that's the way I look at things when I work with title agents, realtors, my team members. Am I excited to pick up that call? And if not, then you have hard decisions to make.
Yeah, I like that. That's true. That's got me thinking about different people I talk to every day. But anyways, let's talk a bit about today, the market, what you're doing, how you guys are still building right now. Because I said to Mason when I sent you the Calendly link, I don't know many wholesalers in Colorado that are still around, other than the big ones that have been around for a very long time, since well before COVID. So, who are you selling your deals to today? Is it mostly just assignments to people who are going to rehab the houses? What does that look like, and what are you doing to stay in business and grow?
Yeah. So, a couple of thoughts about this. Number one, I think wholesaling became really popular during COVID as sort of this side hustle movement blew up, right? Everyone wanted a side hustle. Everyone wanted to quit their job. Everyone wanted to make more money and become a billionaire and all this stuff. And what they didn't realize about wholesaling is it's hard,
Yeah.
right? It's freaking hard. And so nobody tells you about that. They just, you just see my clip on Instagram. Oh, I made $45,000. But like I said, I mean, I worked 7 months of making $0 to get that. So I think people didn't realize how hard it was. They also didn't focus on building a business that was future proof. They were just going for the cash grab opportunities, do a deal here and there, whatever, that's fine. And they didn't think about the future and scaling and building something sustainable. So I think that's why you see all these wholesalers going out of business. I'd be comfortable saying probably 80 to 90% have gone out of business. I always check Google Trends to kind of see interest. If you type in like wholesale real estate into Google Trends, you see a massive spike during COVID, and then you see it like nobody's looking into it anymore. So that's interesting. And then you asked about, who are we selling deals to? I do think that has completely changed. And in the beginning, a lot of people were just buying deals off like Facebook, Craigslist, even like there's a lot of social media. I think there's now so much noise in social media. It's impossible to tell what's a good deal. Most of them aren't good deals. And so the serious buyers are not spending hours and hours and hours every day on Facebook looking for deals, right? They're just not. I think building personal relationships is more important now than ever before. We have a lot of buyers that only look at our deals specifically because they've done business with us before, right? And so to me, emailing basically useless at this point. Texting has some use because you're kind of putting it right in front of them. A phone call, in my opinion, is excellent. Um, but I've even set a goal of meeting a new person here in Denver every single week since I've moved here. So I take a different investor, different agent out to lunch every single week. In fact, if anyone is seeing this, they're in Colorado, they want to go meet for breakfast or lunch, I'm more than happy to do that.
I'm right here, baby.
Let's go, Mason. But yeah, just connecting with people and, real estate really is a team sport. And so building up those relationships, and building trust with people, I think is going to make you more successful than just sending out a bazillion email blasts right now, because people are just inundated with so much noise and so many bad deals that they're tired of that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I think much of what you're describing is really analogous to what's going on in the land space right now. Land didn't get as much attention until a few years after, wholesaling. And then we saw a huge spike in competition. And I feel like it's really trailed off in the last 12 months because it's not quite as easy as it was. I think it's the same thing. And I really like your point about those relationships, because I know some big flippers in Denver that would buy all your deals. If you know them and you can get your deals in front of them, they'll buy every one of them. So I like that option because it's just, once you know and trust somebody and have done business with them, it just makes the transaction so easy. They don't have to double check everything once there's that trust. And I guess trust lubricates deals is the term I've heard, and it's so true.
Totally. And there is sort of this inherent headbutting in real estate until you've done a deal together.
Yeah.
You build that trust, right? There's kind of this tension between agents and wholesalers and end buyers, and nobody really trusts anyone. And you think this guy is trying to pull one over on you. But the second you've done a deal and the proof is in the pudding, it's all of a sudden, all that stuff goes out the window. They want to do more business with you, especially if they make money, right? We check back with our flippers to make sure they made money on the projects that we sold them. So because of that, we build that trust, we build that relationship. They give me a call on my cell phone. Hey, James, what's going on? I just sold a project. I'm looking for another one. And so that's allowed us to still be successful, even as, a lot of buyers have pulled out of the market this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool, man. One just side question that I didn't ask earlier. Are you still entirely focused on cold call and texting, or are you sending mailers, or what all are your acquisition channels?
We've gotten much bigger in the digital space. So we run a lot of Google ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads. We have a SEO optimized website, as well as the cold calling team. And it's weird. I actually see kind of the opposite fluctuations in each one. Beginning of this year, we did a very few Google deals. I think I was losing money on Google advertising. But we did 6, outbound deals in 1 month, which is crazy. So we did a ton. And then more recently, this past quarter, we've done very few outbound deals, but Google has been going crazy. So I actually just did a marketing analysis this morning. Inbound had made up 50% of our total revenue. Outbound made up 25% of our total revenue. So that's calling and texting. And then referrals made up the other 25%. So that's working with agents or somebody calling me. I've had buddies from college call me and they're dude, my fiance's grandma passed away and she has a house in Colorado. And just being present on social media makes those deals pop up too.
Yeah, 50% coming from inbound is awesome. And referrals, almost kind of the same thing of that's huge. I think a lot of people had this kind of shift in mindset of COVID of being able to work remote. And, I know you got this started whenever you were in San Diego, but it seems like the salespeople, the closers, have always been in-person people. What or do you feel like you need that in-person salesperson to give you that competitive advantage to be able to build a successful business? Or do you think this could be something that could be completed fully remote?
It can be done virtually. I know people operating virtually that are very successful. We've tracked the data, and face-to-face closings are 3 to 4 times as successful as phone remote closings. So that's just a fact, right? The advantage that people have if they're 100% virtual is a lot of times they can do a lot more volume. And so they can be in multiple markets, and they can get really cheap leads because they're in multiple markets, and they can make a lot more offers because they do it in a 30-minute phone call instead of taking an hour to drive to Colorado Springs, an hour face to face, an hour driving home. And so what you lose in closing effectiveness, you gain in volume, right? You just need to look at it that way. People are going to say no to you a lot more often, but you can just do more reps than the guy who has to drive to each property.
Got it. And for you personally, as you look to the future of the next 3, 5, 10 years, do you see yourself continuously taking more market share in Colorado, or starting to expand virtually, to be able to do it virtually, or opening up other offices in other markets or states that you like? What's the future look like for you, James?
It's a great question. Yeah, people build different ways, right? So you either go deep or you go wide. Personally, I don't think we've even scratched the surface in Colorado. I think we have so much more that we can do here. And so to me, there's not really a point to go wider and diversify into other markets yet. I think still the ceiling is very high here. The one thing I really like about being in one local market is brand presence.
Yeah.
Because when you go nationally, it's very difficult to build a brand that people identify with, where you're just in your local market, you can be that local guy. He knows the market. He grew up here. You have relationships, and it becomes very difficult to manage that across multiple markets. And so for that reason, I'm going to keep going deep in Colorado until I feel like there's diminishing returns and we're not getting out what we're putting in, at which point I might consider doing something else. But at this point, we're 100% Colorado.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I see this mistake in the land business too, where people try and go to 25 different markets and then they lose money. So the more you can just go deep in one area and be the local expert for your asset, I think that's the way to do it. And especially Colorado's expensive. Denver's expensive, which is a good thing in the business you're in. Yeah. So, well, James, we've hit on a lot of different topics. Let's see. Are there any other major takeaways or aspects of your business we haven't talked about, or anything else you think we might have missed that would be worth talking about?
I think when you're talking about building a business, which is a lot of what we talked about today, you always need to be focused on finding the constraint, right? And so at any given time, there's only one constraint. People talk about too many things. Do I want to expand my business to another market? Do I want to hire more people? Do I want to do mail instead of Google, instead of calling? It's like there's so many things. And if you think about it, there's really only one thing holding you back from taking it to the next step, right? And so it's like what we were talking about in the beginning. When I was a one-man show, I thought about, okay, what's the one thing that would propel us forward? If I can make more phone calls, how do I make more phone calls? Hire somebody to do that while I'm working, right? And so I think it really helps you focus down on what your main challenge is, and it helps you scale more quickly because you're not all over the place, right? You're not running around like a chicken with its head cut off. You're just laser focused on that one thing, and you just attack that one thing until you solve that problem, and then you move on to the next thing, right? So I'm not thinking about other markets. I'm not even thinking about other marketing channels or anything like that. Could I spend more on marketing? Probably. Doesn't matter to me. To me, right now, the only important thing is hiring a new acquisition manager, right? So we have more leads that we can handle. We're looking for somebody that wants to make 150 to 200 grand every single year, work super hard, do a lot of deals, make a lot of money. And so to me, hiring that person is the only constraint that I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, I love that. It's the old, or I think this is probably from Hormozy, the more, better, new. Do more of what's already working till you can't, then do it better. And then only once you've done the maximum amount to the best possible degree, then you can do something new. Yeah. Yeah. Which is this same kind of idea. Awesome. Let's see. That's, I think, a good stopping point. We'll have to come back and talk further with you down the road once you've continued to grow. But James, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm all over Facebook and Instagram. I try to provide value, just little nuggets here and there as I'm learning things in my business. So it's James Heller on Facebook, or it's Hellerman Industries on Instagram. Um, you can look up my business, the Atlas Portfolio. We buy houses in all shapes, sizes, everything across Colorado. We make things super easy. And I'm more than happy to connect with people who are local here in Denver or anywhere in Colorado. Really, I'm all over the place. So do reach out if you're here. I'm happy to connect with you.
Awesome. James, thanks for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Dan Haberkoss, Mason McDonald, today with James Heller for the Big Picture Blueprint, signing off.